This is the Doufflay. Is pronounced Doufflay, like Target. It makes it fancy. This video is a comprehensive tutorial covering the steps that you'll find in the pattern for the Doufflay that I sell on my shop. It's an intermediate level bag pattern. That means you need to be comfortable with the zipper and a sewing machine. Maybe even some bag hardware. Okay, a lot of hardware. The bag pattern comes with 2 strap options. The first option is a rolled handle strap that you basically just sew or rivet in place. Or if you're plucky, you can do hidden straps. The second option, which is honestly the more complex option, is going to be a wraparound strap. That's basically what I'm going to cover in the video because honestly, yeah, it's more complex. It doesn't look it, but there's some technique that goes with this that I feel is important to cover in the video. To make this video easier to digest, I'm basically going to leave a little bit of an intro that's easy to see when you scrub through the time bar. So if you want to skip around a bit, it'll be easy to do that. Let's talk about some considerations for fabric. In this video, I'll be showing off how to do it with woven fabric. This is a basic cotton canvas. Since it's a cotton canvas, I actually interfaced it twice. The pattern actually calls this out. If you're going to use a woven fabric, I highly advise that you use something like just a woven interfacing also on that exterior fabric. Then on top of that, put that medium to heavyweight interfacing. So basically, I put Shape Flex down and then I put a little bit of Sew Fuse Plus. I really advise against fleece interfacing for this. I don't think it's gonna get you what you want in the final look. This is a very structured bag that needs to hold its shape. I also highly encourage you to use zipper tape and a separate zipper pull as opposed to a prepared zipper. If you do opt to use a pre-made zipper, make sure it has the finishing edges on the top and the bottom. And maybe aim to get something very long, like 18, 20 inches long. Trust me, when we get to the top stitching part, you'll understand. Apart from that, let's get started. Cut it out. A quick run through of the pattern pieces. Piece A is cut on the fold. This is the exterior. I have actually selected to use a canvas for this. And then for the lining, I have a waterproof canvas, OtterTex, the kind with the rubberized backing. So these two are both panel A. Piece B is the side. You have 2 of these cut out of lining, and 2 of them are cut out of your exterior fabric. Piece C is actually going to be a crossbody strap connector, so something that your D-ring would then loop into. I've actually just opted to simply use webbing, so you don't actually need to use the pattern piece for that other than to measure its length. These should be 3 inches in length. Piece D, I've decided to use a really neat glitter canvas that I purchased many years ago because I thought it would be a nice flashy accent to put on my side panels. So these will go on the exterior side panels like that. It's always nice to choose something that is complementary to your fabric. And then, of course, I use the same accent fabric for what will be the bottom accent. This ends up going right across the middle section like this because technically this will be one of your openings and this will be the other side of your opening. So when we do the wraparound strap option, we'll need this to basically cover up where the raw ends are going to meet up and also make it look really nice. It also adds a structural element to the bag. And of course, since I'm using webbing for the hardware attachment, I'm going to use webbing for the straps as well. So the same webbing, 1 inch wide. I really wouldn't go any wider than that because then it's going to look a little awkward. Now, if we flip this over, you can see that I've already prepared all of these pieces. Since I have waterproof canvas with the PVC backing on it, I'm not going to bother interfacing this because it basically is already structured, so it's kind of overkill. However, since I used a canvas fabric for the exterior, I chose to interface it double. So I used a woven interfacing like Shape Flex 101. Then I added a more structural, heavy toned version like a Deco Bond, a Sew Fuse Plus, or Decaville Light. To demonstrate, it needs to basically do this, not this. See how it's this flippity floppity? You don't want that. You want it to basically be able to kind of roll up and stand on its own. a bit. I mean, it's still got a little flop. For the main bag, the only hardware that you need to have available at this time is your D-rings. Now, I am going to opt to use rivets. I tend to use 9mm rivets with most of my bags. I'm going to use the rivets when I secure the wraparound straps on either side. Now, you may have noticed that this is a little on the deep side, so it goes in and down quite a ways. So that means this little boy isn't gonna work. So that's why I use a standard hole punch with a mallet. I don't have to worry about trying to roll up the fabric and get it in this tiny little area here. Wraparound straps. You spin me right round, baby. For this step, you're going to need your pattern piece available to you so that you can make all of the appropriate markings. Really, I'm just going to take a chalk pencil and transfer where all these little strap alignment guides are. You can see them on your pattern as arrows pointing toward the edge. I'm also going to mark the centers, and then I'm just going to slide this down a little so I can access this section up here. And mark the strap alignment guides, the top center, and the other channel. Now I can basically take this, just so I know exactly where the center is, and draw a line right down the middle. This is chalk, so it'll just disappear later. Now flip the pattern around and do the same thing on the other side. Also mark the sides. I might have missed that here, so I will go back. And you just need to keep pivoting things out of the way. And mark everything that you need that's listed in the pattern's instructions. We can put this over here just for a second because you can transfer some of the information to the lining as well at this stage. The important details that you need for the lining are the center marks and the top centers, as well as what would be considered the side centers. If you don't put that information in now, it might be hard to navigate later when you're trying to do the zipper. Take the 53 inches of webbing that you've cut out for these straps, and I want you to take it and fold it in half. So take those raw ends and put them next to each other, and just fold that in half to find the other halfway point. You don't have to do anything bonkers with it, like mark it with like ink or anything. I'm actually just going to take a pen because this is a loose weave, and I don't really care. It's not going to hurt anything. Otherwise, you can use chalk or a clip, whatever works for you. The important thing is that you know where one halfway point is, which is basically where these are open, and the other halfway point, which would be on the opposite side. Now we can set that aside and bring in panel A. For this step, I actually prefer to use a little bit of leather tape. It's double-sided and really strong. If you use a wash-away tape that you can get at a big box sewing store, God help you. You can also use fabric glue. So I'm going to take very small strips of this tape, just maybe 1.5 inches or less, and I'm going to put them in between what will be the center of the bag. So remember, this is going to fold up, and that'll be the bottom of the bag. So that's where we want these straps to meet up. So we're going to put it right over that center line for reference, but in between each of the channel markers. So these are basically your strap channels through here. So let's put one on the other side as well. And then we're just going to rip up the little paper, and it's sticky. Pick up your webbing one more time and take one of the raw ends, either of them, and lay it on the center line, but on one of the sides. I typically start on the left side, so we're just going to take it and put it down there and stick it real good. Then, to help with things, I'd like to take my forefinger and my thumb and just slide over the webbing. I'm not pinching myself or anything with the needle there, and make sure I didn't twist anything. Then I'm going to take the other raw end and butt it up against the other and stick it on the tape, ensuring that nothing gets twisted in the process. Now I'm going to find that other halfway point, and that's going to go on this other center section here. So I'm just going to stick it right down there. Now I can remove the pin because I know where it's supposed to go, and it's not going anywhere. Now here's the fun part. So in the instructions, it was really hard to kind of explain this to everyone. I hope that it turned out all right as far as things go. But turn everything over like that so that you have the wrong side showing. Now you're gonna roll up into the cylinder shape. Grab the other end of the webbing and just pull it up gently like that, so it's laying as you would expect it to lay once it's sewn. For this step, I use clips, and I'm just going to clip the strap down in between the markers at the very top on either side, because they can get a little on the shifty end there. So smoothing that up, but not tugging is the thing. You don't want to pull on it. So that's just going to hold those straps gently and loosely where they're supposed to go. So lay that back down and now do the same thing, but for the other side. All right, so now we're going to lay that back down and flip it so that it is right side up again. Now you're probably looking at this and going, but there's all this slack here. What in the what? That's because you have to give it ease. Just like you would expect when you're making a garment, you need a certain amount of ease so you can actually move in the garment. Now, regardless of any ease that we have in here, because basically we just decided not to marry our strap to a position on the bag until we sew it, we're going to take a ruler and we're going to mark where we want to stop stitching on each of these channels. You don't want to go all the way to the top because then your straps will be stuck inside with the zipper. So we're going to go up 4.5 inches. And I'm going to see if this chalk pencil is going to work. I just need a little bit of a reference so I know, okay, this is where I am going to stop. Actually, and for you all watching, I'm just going to slip a little pen in there because that'll be a lot easier for you to visualize when I'm sewing. So we're going to do that on all 4 of the straps. Okay, now if you do smooth it out, you can see that they are fairly aligned, which is great. These marks are also kind of on the pattern itself, but because of the clips, it's a little hard to kind of just lay down my acrylic pattern. Now for the sewing of this, obviously your presser foot is going to take any ease that you have and start to move it away and into a certain direction. The way that you avoid additional puckering, take advantage of that ease and ensure that your straps are going to be the same size on either side of the bag, is to only stitch from the center out. In the pattern, it's clearly illustrated. You'll start and you'll do 2 top stitches per strap. You'll start in the center and move up to the end marker here. You'll cut your threads, go back to the center on the opposite side, and go in the same direction up to that end marker. Then you're going to rinse and repeat for the remaining strap sections. What that's going to do is ensure that you take advantage of the ease and you don't end up with lopsided straps or have the straps start to become a little, I don't know, crooked. I'm going to demonstrate a few of these top stitches so you can see what it is that I'm doing and how I handle it. Really, the idea is just to keep everything straight as you're doing the top stitch and allow the presser foot to move that fabric forward for the webbing. So I'm going to line up, and you want your top stitch to start again in the center, not way back on the other side. As tempting as it is, it's going to give you really messed up looking straps. You want to be 1/8 of an inch away. Now I am on my compound walking foot for my Juki DU11N, so my foot's pretty much already aligned right here in the center section to be 1/8 of an inch away. In other words, I'm cheating. I am using a top stitch length of 4.5 millimeters in case anybody's curious. I'm just going to hold everything straight and make sure that I'm not like tugging or forcing it. Just allow the machine to move all of this. I'm going to start stitching and back stitch and just start to move forward until I reach that stopping point. And I'll go just before and not stitch through it because I'm not gonna try to break my machine. Pull it out and snip. Flip the panel around and stitch from the center up to the end mark on the other side of the strap. Now do that for the remaining 3 sections of strapping, 2 top stitches each, center, out. So here we have the end result of attaching the wraparound webbing. Now if you want at this point, you can basically take this and put a rivet in. Ta-da! Rivets! The bottom accent. Let's make it look so pretty. Now you may have noticed this is a little ugly down here. And while you can do a little bit of an overlap, it'll make the bag just look kind of, I don't know, cheap. Which is why we have the accent piece. Piece G is your accent piece. You can totally use the exact same fabric. You could use another strip of webbing. Really, if you're using fabric though, it's supposed to be nicely contrasty to the current fabric just to give your bag a little bit of a punch. I also made it matchy-match with what I will use for the side panels. You need to take a ruler of some variety and basically draw in lines that are 1/4 inch away from each of the longer edges. You're gonna take those and you're gonna fold them to the inside. So we'll just go ahead, draw those lines, just like so. Now for this part, you can use fabric glue, you can use clips. I do think it's a lot easier just to reach for that double-sided tape. So I actually have 1/4 inch double-sided tape for leather. Again, you're on your own if you use that wash away stuff. That's more for garments and it does not work with heavier fabrics like this. I'm just gonna place it down into the little section where I basically drew the line. So it's going to be within what would be a seam allowance. And put another one down here and just smoothing out as I go and snip it. Now I'm just gonna take my fingernail and flick on it a little bit and pull off. Just gonna do this on one side. Then you're gonna take it and you're gonna fold it over. So I'm gonna fold that 1/4 inch in and just press. So there's one side. I'm gonna flip it around. I find it easier to fold it toward myself. Remove the double-sided tape paper by flicking the mess out of it and hoping it works. And then fold it over 1/4 inch. Just to make my life easier, I'm gonna put one bit of tape down the center section here. And I will be using that to hold it to my center seam on the main exterior panel. Flick off that tape and place it right over the center line. It should be about 3/8 of an inch on either side of the center. And again, just like we did with the straps, you don't want to sew down this way and then sew that way because that'll kind of hink it this way. So instead, we're going to sew on this side to the other side and then come back and top stitch this side down to the other side. My seam allowance for this top stitch is going to be 1/8 of an inch. Basically just over the edge here. If you want to go further in, it's going to look really dumb because then you're going to have all this flapping out. So basically you're just going to stitch all the way down and then to the other side. I'm just speeding through this because there's only so many lines of stitches that you can watch in real time. And again, don't do anything going in the opposite direction. Cut it and come back up to the top and do the other side. Doesn't that look nice? Now you don't see the raw ends where we initially put everything together, and this also creates a really nice sturdy structural element to the bottom of the bag. Now we can move on to the zipper. Zipper installation. Not really all that hard. For the zipper installation step, you're going to need your zipper tape that's already pre-cut to be 12 inches in length, the exterior of piece A that already has the straps and everything installed, and the lining for piece A. The important thing to note is if you skip the markings, now is the best time to add the markings to the lining and again to the exterior because you're going to need those when you're attaching the zipper and eventually the side panels. Adding them later is going to be an absolute hot mess and you're on your own if you do that. So for now, go ahead and move the lining off to the side and we're going to take our zipper tape. Now you might be wondering, kittens, this is super long. I don't need anything that long. Everybody thinks that until they actually do need it. Anyway, conversation aside, the reason that it's longer is to make this so much easier to install, especially once you get to doing this on the other side. I promise you, of everything having to do with this pattern, this is the only part that I feel really needs a tutorial video. So we're gonna do a little trick that our friend Beth taught me. We're gonna mark 2 parallel lines on either extreme end of the zipper. This is a tip that we got when I was teaching the Doufflay pattern in its debut at the sewing room of Garner. All you gotta do is draw 2 parallel lines. All you gotta do is take a ruler and draw 2 parallel lines across the zipper teeth, just like outside of what would be the seam allowance. And I'm doing this with a white gel pen, and I'll go back over it in just a moment, just to make sure I've got everything good. This is gonna be cut off eventually, so it's not a big deal. Nobody's ever gonna see that anyway. So this will help line up everything at the end, because you do not want to put the zipper pull on yet. You want to leave the zipper pull off. There we go. I just need those little reference lines. It doesn't have to be overly fancy. So what'll happen is once we do put the zipper pull on, we can use these lines to basically make sure that we've lined everything up correctly and you don't end up getting that weird bubble in the middle just because your teeth are off. Next thing you're going to do is take that zipper and you're going to fold it in half. That's like this, lengthwise, of course. And we just want to mark the centers. Again, nothing fancy, just right on the edge so you can reference it when you're placing it onto the bag panels. I'm going to slide this panel into view. One thing that helps a lot is to basically take these webbing pieces and just clip them together so that they're out of the way during this step. I'm going to take the zipper, lining up these center points, and just fold it over so that the right sides are touching. I'll just put a clip in there. And again, like I kind of just have to reference that because I am filming at a very weird angle. Boop. So now I have a clip in there. Now from the center out, you're just going to clip it down right in place. And the fun thing about this is the zipper pull isn't in the way. So you don't need to kind of wiggle it out of the way or put on a special kind of zipper foot, especially if you are already working on a machine like mine. So first thing, we're just going to do a basting stitch 1/8 of an inch from the edge. Once basted, you're going to take the lining and put it right side down on top of all of this, just like that. This is going to end up creating a sandwich between the lining, the zipper, and the exterior. Just line up the center markings and clip all the way down from the center out. When you're done clipping, you're going to go do the real stitch with a construction stitch length, 2.5 to 3.5, somewhere in there, 1/4 inch away from the edge. Now we need to top stitch it, and in order to do that, we've got to reveal the zipper on the right side. So we're going to take our lining and we're going to flip it over. I like to hold down the zipper and give this a nice little tug, and then you can finger press, use a brayer, a roller, a hammer, or whatever you want. It just helps to kind of get it in place and make sure it's not kind of going to bubble up against the zipper tape. Then I'm going to take all this and pinch it just like that, all along the edge, just to make sure everything is nice and taut, and then flip it over. Now I'm going to put some clips in here now that I know everything is very flush. Keep it flush. Just get the clips in there. Again, it's so important to make sure that everything is laying flat and that your bottoms line up. Here's where a lot of people mess up these bags with top stitching in general and with zipper openings. So they don't make sure that everything stays aligned after installing the zipper before doing that top stitch. We're just going to top stitch right along the edge here, somewhere between 1/8 and 1/4 of an inch away from the rolled over edge. Now you can remove all of those clips that you were using just to hold everything taut. Here comes the fun part. Take this exterior end here that's going to end up being on the other side and roll it over so that its wrong side is facing up. You're going to line up your marks in the center between the zipper and this other side and put clips in. And of course it helps to start from the center and work your way out with the clips so that you evenly distribute the zipper. Keeping the lining out of the way, you're going to do a basting stitch 1/8 of an inch from the edge. When you're done basting, take everything and flip it over so that the exterior's little loop is on the bottom And the lining is right side facing up. Just like you did with the exterior, you're going to take the short end of the lining and fold it over so that its right side is touching the wrong side of the opposite end of the zipper. Line up those center markings, place a clip, and of course, as always, you want to work from the center out. When you're done clipping, this is basically what it should look like. And now you understand the pattern photo. Take this to the sewing machine and do a construction stitch 1/4 of an inch away from the edge. Don't forget to backstitch at the start and the end of your stitch. Now you're probably looking at this and going, oh no, Mr. Bill! And like, how in the world are we going to top stitch the other side? Here's the genius of it. And the reason you don't have a zipper pull on here. You're gonna rip that zipper in half. Just like that. And then you're gonna flip it just like this. So it's right side out, eventually. Ha! Probably scared you for a minute there, huh? So now what you're gonna do pretty much what you did before by making sure that the zipper tape is nice and taut and that you smooth out all of the fabric that's up here and nothing ends up kind of rolling up. You don't want to have any of this be uneven or to have like these huge gaping areas of fabric in between. It should be nice and tight like a toiga. Place clips on either end just to make sure everything stays where it's supposed to while you're doing the top stitch, and go to the sewing machine. Do one more top stitch between 1/4 and 3/8 of an inch from the rolled edge. While everything is still in flatter than we were in middle school form, base the longer edges so that they don't wiggle around on us when we attach the side panels later. You can hold either edge taut just to make sure you don't have any bubbles in the fabric as you sew. And now comes the time to install the zipper pull. Just flip this over so that everything can be rolled up to be right side out. Then you can install the zipper pull. If you were smart and listened to Beth's advice that I cited at the beginning of this whole process, you can use the lines underneath to make sure that your zipper teeth remain lined up. Otherwise, you might end up cockeyed. It does help at this stage to just squish the bag down onto the table if you need to pull the zipper on and you don't have one of those little fork-looking tools to do it for you. If I look underneath, everything's lined up. Good to go. Before we go on to preparing the side panels, one thing I do advise that you do at this point is to basically sew across the teeth or use a couple of staples at the end here to keep this from basically flying open on you. It'll also make it a lot easier to line up the side panels when we get to that point. Big thing note, don't accidentally overlap these or you'll end up causing like some kind of weird bunched up looking thing at the end. Let's prepare the sides, and I don't mean green bean casserole. We're gonna have to prepare the side panels to actually be sewn, and that's because they have strap connectors. Before you go anywhere, you need to transfer the markings from pattern piece B to both the exterior and the lining pieces. This is because you need to be able to line these up after installing these guys so you don't end up with them turned like 180 degrees or whatever. To go over all the pieces, you basically have 2 of the piece B's in exterior and then 2 piece B in lining. Then you have 2 piece C's cut out, and if you didn't cut them already, you just need 2 3-inch long strips of the webbing. Of course, if you want, there is a pattern piece included to help you make one of these out of fabric. And let us not forget our D-rings, 1 for each side. I'll start first by marking everything just to make sure I have it all in place. For the lining, I only need to do the top, the bottom, the left, and the right markings. However, for the exterior, probably gonna want to put that bottom accent piece line just so you know you're gonna line it up straight and correctly. Just for now, we're gonna take the lining pieces and move them out of the way and slide these down so we can work with them. Grab your accent pieces and lay them so that they are wrong side facing up. Grab a ruler and some kind of marking utensil, and you're gonna mark 1/2 inch away. Actually, let me slide all this out of the way and move this over here. So we're gonna mark 1/2 inch away. You're only gonna turn 1/4 inch under, but unlike what I did with the bottom of the bag, with that accent piece, it's actually easier to just go ahead and mark over where it's gonna fold to. So for that, we're gonna do 1/2 inch. Do this for both of the pieces. Now you can take tape or glue and put it along the edge here and then fold everything under and stick it in place. I'm just going to use tape because it's a lot less messy and doesn't get me high. Honestly, sometimes I stick these jokes in here just to see who's paying attention about 20 minutes or so into a video. So when you fold it, you're just going to take the raw edge and line it up to that line that you made. That's a 1/2 inch away, and that pretty much guarantees that you don't do anything silly like overshoot your goal or just try to eyeball the 1/4 inch. Make sure you do this for both of them so that you have everything ready to go. While it might be excessive on the tape, I do actually find that it helps to put a little bit on the bottom section just to hold it, because sometimes you just can't pen things. For example, this is a vinyl. I don't want to put any holes in it other than what I'm going to stitch through. You only want the tape or the glue to be on that bottom fold. You do not want tape in the middle or on the top. Now take those exterior pieces and orient them so that they are basically right side up. And I don't mean fabric-wise, I mean this is the top and this is the bottom. So this line that I made is where the bottom of these accent pieces should line up. So take the tape off from that bottom section and then line up to that line there. You will have excess on the edge. Don't worry about that. We'll get to it later. Now do the same thing for the other side. Once it's kind of stuck down, you know it's not going to move on you, you want to top stitch just on the bottom edge here, 1/8 of an inch away. We're going to do that to both of them. Don't stitch anything up here. You want this to end up being nice and free and loosey-goosey. Once you've transferred the markings, you basically just need to loop your webbing or your connector that you've made and basically put it into the D-ring. You're just going to loop it in just like that and match the raw ends together. You can put a clip at the end just to keep them in place. It's up to you how you want to get this to kind of stay in place. You can stitch straight across, make a box, or just stick a rivet in there. It's important that you do that because if you don't, you have all of this little space in here and it's going to cause your D-ring to kind of rotate and annoy the crap out of people. I'm going to use rivets because it's easier and I'm lazy. But really, I just think rivets look cool. I don't know why I'm talking with my hands. Make sure you do the other one too, and don't ADHD off into the distance and forget that you have 2 strap connectors. Now you can basically take your little top stitched exterior side pieces and insert the D-rings. You're going to do this so that they are centered. Now you can remove the clips if you still had them, and use the top as a guide to basically make sure that everything is centered. You want to basically butt up the raw end of the webbing or the strap connector fabric against the bottom here where you top stitched. Just make sure that everything's centered. Again, I'm going to remove the clip and do the same to the other side. Now I'm going to take these to the sewing machine and I'm going to top stitch along the top edge. You can also do a second top stitch if you want to secure it, or you can opt to put another rivet. Since I already have a rivet sitting in the strap connector bit itself, I'm going to opt to just do the 2 lines of top stitching because I really don't want to have the anxiety of trying to line up those rivets. Now you got your pieces with everything kind of attached to them. You're going to take them and you're going to flip them so that they are right side down. Then take each of the lining pieces and put them so they are wrong sides together with the exterior. Line up the top, bottom, left, and right marks and clip in place. You may see that it helps to smooth things out so that you don't have a bubble. Flip everything back over so it's exterior side facing up and just pull those D-rings down. Now we're going to go to the sewing machine and baste 1/8 of an inch away from the raw edge just to keep everything in place. And of course, if you're lazy like me and had the lining cut way too fast and have a little bit hanging over, stick to the edge of the exterior. Now is the time on sprockets where we trim the excess. Also, you can trim the excess of the lining if you had a bunch of overage. Sewing the sides. Yeehaw, y'all, let's go. Now we're ready for the final phase, putting on the side panels. I neglected to mention that you should probably also secure the other end if you're paranoid like me. So I'm actually going to take my stapler and I'm just going to add a couple staples here to the tip. Yeah, even Queen Victoria would be impressed. Now that we know everything is roughly secure, go ahead and open up the zipper at least halfway. You don't want to do it all of the way because you don't want the zipper pull to be too close to the edge because you're going to end up sewing there. Now we're going to go ahead and flip this to be inside out. Make sure to take it easy. I know these bags can take a beating, but the last thing that you want right now is for that zipper pull to come off and you spend another 10 minutes cussing and putting it on. If you've wrinkled things, and you probably have, don't worry about it. You'll be able to kind of like fix that later by steaming or just blowing it with a hairdryer. I find it helpful at this point to take the bag and set it upright on the table. That way it's a little easier for you to work around in the circle. Take one of the side panels and set it so that it's going to be right side together with the exterior. So all you should see on the outside here is the lining. Line up all of your markers from top, bottom, and left and right, and clip them in place. When you get the 4 primary markers clipped down, you can work your way in between each to add more clips. Don't be afraid to massage the fabric a bit to ease any puckers out as you evenly distribute between the markers. Even though I love having an abundance of clips in place to make sure nothing's going to move on me, it's actually a lot easier to do the next step, which is basically sewing everything, if you replace the clips with staples. All I do is go around the inside with the stapler, replacing the clips, and putting an ample amount of staples within the seam allowance. As a reminder, the seam allowance is 3/8 of an inch for the remainder of the bag. If you are going to opt to use the staples technique, install them so that the flat side is on the side panel and the curved pointy side is on the barrel. When we stitch this seam, the side panel will be against the machine bed, and you don't want those prongs to scratch the sewing machine. It may seem like a struggle, but really is easier to avoid puckering if you sew with the side panel on the machine bed and the barrel of the bag facing up. This is because you only have to worry about one side of the seam allowance forming puckers, which in this case would be the barrel. I find it helps a lot to keep a stiletto or point turner around to help smooth out the barrel's portion of the seam allowance. Take it slowly and maintain the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Move in chunks, smooth it out with your tool of choice, then continue to move forward until you've gone all the way around. When you're done, use a staple remover or jewelry pliers to remove the staples. Don't trim the entire seam allowance down, but trim it just enough to even up the raw edge, which is going to make things a lot easier to bind later. Repeat this tutorial section for the remaining side panel. You can also snip off the excess zipper tape when evening up the edges. Just make sure to leave a little bit sticking out, maybe 1/8 of an inch, then pop it with a flame to make sure it won't unravel. Before moving on to the next step, make sure to repeat all of this for the remaining side panel, unless you prefer drafty handbags. Binding. It's a lot easier than you think. The last step for the bag's assembly is to bind the raw edges where the side panels meet the barrel. I highly recommend using 1-inch fold-over elastic for the binding. It's a little heavier than bias tape, but that gives the bag a nice structure. Not to mention it's stretchy and has a distinct crease down the center, which makes it easier to install. I have a standalone tutorial for how to add binding to bags using fold-over elastic, so I'm not really going to spend a whole lot of time on that in this video. I'll leave a link in the description of the video for this specific technique, and there should be a helpful little card at the top of the screen. When the binding's done, all you have to do is take this and flip it right side out. Put on your patience panties and get to work. Start with the end that's open, pushing with your thumbs to roll the bound edge inward. Then push a little bit through the opening before starting on the other bound edge. Try to avoid pulling anything because you have a lot less control over the force applied. It's also a lot easier to rip out a zipper or stretch the fabric if you pull. Ta-da! When you have everything flipped right side out, reach in and gently push on the bound edges to make sure it's as pushed inward as possible. From the outside, you can roll the seams between your fingers and your thumb to smooth the edge and get the binding to sit correctly on the inside. Now the main bag is done, so let's do a crossbody strap. Crossbody strap, you're almost there. For the crossbody strap part, you basically need some webbing or strapping if you're a masochist, a tri-glide, and 2 lobster hooks with matching hardware for D-rings. You can sew these things, but again, like I said, I prefer to use rivets. I'm going to run through this relatively quickly, but I will also link to a more detailed and very slow version of how to make a crossbody strap in the description of the video below. There also might be a little card that way. So as far as measuring goes, I tend to go with 60 inches of webbing. For me, that covers enough. It gives me enough room for, you know, crossbody shenanigans and also for the tucking under and excess that I need. I'm choosing to go with a contrasty little strap instead of using the cotton webbing that I used for the wraparound. So I'll just measure out the 20 inches that I need, or rather 60. And cut. Then you definitely want to take a flame and burn the mess out of the edges. I'm using seatbelt webbing, so I need to do a little extra work for this because it's so tightly wound. Sometimes just a single pass isn't enough. Naturally, I'm going to use a rivet press and rivets, which means I'm going to need this bad boy. I take one raw end and I'm going to put it up and over the center bar. Not all the way, just a couple of inches. And then I'm going to tug on it just to make sure it's nice and taut against that center line. Then I'm going to punch a hole in it. Punch. I'm going to take that rivet and go ahead and install it. Give it a nice press. You should feel it click. Boop. Just like that. Now I'm going to consider this to be the right side and this to be the wrong side. For the first loop, that's basically going to be the adjustable part, I'm just going to put my thumb and my forefinger on here to guide down to the end so I don't accidentally twist any of this. Although I will say this is one of the parts where you can kind of fix it later. I'm going to insert my D-ring upside down with the hook. And then pull this up so that I have this little loop. The raw end is going to go up and then over. Whee! At this point, I just like to double check that I haven't done anything dumb, like twist it up. I'm going to go ahead and flip this so that it is upside down like this, because now this is how we want the buckle to look, as if it is against the person's shoulder and facing outward, so the right side. So we're going to flip it under just like that and take our thumb and our forefinger and just glide down to the end. This part I want to fold over toward the wrong side. So I'm going to take the little D-ring here and I'm going to put the hook onto the end like that. Now I'm going to put 2 rivets right here to make sure it really isn't going anywhere, because this is actually a load-bearing seam. Now's a good time to remind you, I do have that video available in the description below. It's a lot slower and easier to follow along if you've never made a crossbody strap before. Now you can just take the strap and you can clip it onto the bag. And there you have your dufflay. Congratulations. And here's what it looks like when you wear it. Thank you for joining along in this tutorial for the Doufflay sewing pattern. If you want to buy the pattern, the link to my shop is in the video's description below. And please tag me in your socials if you happen to post pictures of your makes anywhere. I hope that this video was helpful to your bag making journey. Thank you again, and goodbye.